All right, everyone, it is 12:30, so we are going to go ahead and get started. Today is the final webinar of our Stay Calm and Well Part 3, Beating the Blues. Today we will be beating the blues through connection with Jami Dellifield from Family and Consumer Sciences Educator from Hardin County. Before Jami gets started, just a couple of quick housekeeping items. Given that today is the final webinar, our surveys for the Year Plan for Health Points will close next Wednesday at midnight. So please, if you'd like your Year Plan for Health Points, get your 5 out of 6 knowledge checks and post-evaluation surveys completed by midnight next Wednesday. On Friday, you will receive an email from Josh Wynn or from Buckeye Wellness. Be on the lookout for that. It will show you what your completion percentage is. So he will let you know how many surveys that you've completed for your point total. If you have any questions regarding the surveys with points, please feel free to reach out to us. If you need closed captioning during the webinar, please use your Zoom menu and hit the CC button. Closed captions are available for the live transcript. If you have a question for Jami throughout the presentation, we'll do our best to leave some time at the end here for some Q&A. Please use the Q&A function in your Zoom menu. And if anyone has a question similar to yours, please use the thumbs up button to vote that one to the top. Otherwise, like I said, welcome everybody. Thanks for tuning in again. And be on the lookout here early in the spring. We will likely have a part 4 to our series. So no information or a start date yet, but be on the lookout and we will keep you posted on part 4. So with that, I'll pass it to Jami. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much. As we get started, just a reminder from last week that people are 2 times more productive after taking a humor break. Laughter is contagious. Laughter relieves stress and tension. Laughter improves your immune system and relieves pain. And the number 1 predictor of good physical health is good mental health. So as we begin today and we start to think about beating the blues through connection, building on last week, right? A lot of times we don't laugh by ourselves. I have a tendency sometimes to laugh by myself because I think things are funny that maybe the rest of my family doesn't. But for the most part, we laugh with other people. And so as we get started, just a reminder, I work for Ohio State University Extension in Hardin County. I've highlighted on the map where Hardin County is for those of you who are not familiar with where we're at. And our objectives today, we're going to define connection. We're going to share why connection is important. We're going to discuss barriers that we have to connection, and we're going to identify ways for staying connected. So I'm going to apologize as we start. I'm going to force myself to speak a little more slowly, but I get really excited when I think about relationships and when I think about the ways that we are built for connection. So as we start, what's connection? So the Merriam-Webster dictionary tells us that connection is the act of linking together. It's the fact or condition of having a link. Things that link together, maybe Legos linked together, having a relationship with another person based upon kinship, friendship, or common interest. It can be built through a social, professional, or commercial relationship, or it's the act or means of continuing on a journey. For example, we have to connect to another flight. So when we think about that, we want to think about all of the different ways that connection intersects for us. So for some of us, we have our family relationships, we have our work relationships, we have our relationships based upon activities that we do. So whether it's people that you have a relationship with through your gym or through a sports team or through music, there are lots of different ways that we're connected to people. And the ways that you connect to people are vital no matter how they happen. But it's really important to think about what is it that brings you to connection with other people. And I am a total Brene Brown fan. I don't know how many of the rest of you are, if you want to raise your hand and share that. But she is an amazing researcher who does a lot of great work around the areas of shame and vulnerability. And listening to her on audio is probably one of the biggest things that I miss about teleworking. I don't seem to listen to my audiobooks as much as I used to when I had a commute back and forth to the office. But Brene's books and her audio are just wonderful things. So if you get a chance, She does amazing work. And what we're going to do now is watch a video. And some of you may have already seen this. And I have watched this video so many times. But every single time I watch it, I take something else from it. So a couple of things to focus on while we're watching this video. One, make notes if you want. What phrases resonate with you? And then two, who do you most relate to right now? Are you the fox? Are you the bear? Or are you the antelope?
So what is empathy, and why is it very different than sympathy? Empathy fuels connection. Sympathy drives disconnection. Empathy, it's very interesting. Teresa Wiseman is a nursing scholar who studied professions, very diverse professions where empathy is relevant, and came up with 4 qualities of empathy. Perspective taking, the ability to take the perspective of another person or recognize their perspective as their truth. Staying out of judgment, not easy when you enjoy it as much as most of us do. Recognizing emotion in other people and then communicating that. Empathy is feeling with people. And to me, I always think of empathy as this kind of sacred space when someone's kind of in a deep hole and they shout out from the bottom and they say, I'm stuck, it's dark, I'm overwhelmed. And then we look and we say, hey, you climb down. I know what it's like down here, and you're not alone. Sympathy is, ooh, it's bad, no, you want a sandwich? Empathy is a choice, and it's a vulnerable choice, because in order to connect with you, I have to connect with something in myself that knows that feeling. Rarely, if ever, does an empathic response begin with "at least." And we do it all the time, because you know what? Someone just shared something with us that's incredibly painful, and we're trying to silver lining it. I don't think that's a verb, but I'm using it as one. We're trying to put the silver lining around it. So, I had a miscarriage. Oh, at least you know you can get pregnant. I think my marriage is falling apart. At least you have a marriage. John's getting kicked out of school. At least Sarah is an A student. But one of the things we do sometimes in the face of very difficult conversations is we try to make things better. If I share something with you that's very difficult, I'd rather you say, I don't even know what to say right now, I'm just so glad you told me. Because the truth is, rarely can a response make something better. What makes something better is connection.
My apologies. I am not tech savvy at all. So I think I need to figure out how to move on to the next slide. So that's not it. Let me stop sharing for just once. There it is. So as we think about that video and we think about what Brene said, I think the thing that stands out the most to me always is that one, empathy builds relationships, and that we are built for relationships. It's so easy to fall into that sympathetic response because it's very difficult to open ourselves up to another person. It's very difficult to be that bear. I find the bear very intriguing. Climbing down that little tiny ladder could not have been easy for that bear. And then for that bear to just sit and to be with the fox is so powerful, because so many times we want to fix things for others. And the part of connection that's so important as we think about it during this time, especially not only with the winter of Ohio, but also with the separation that's forced upon it because of COVID, is that we're losing some opportunities to just sit and be with other people. And so that makes it very difficult for us to connect. It makes it very difficult for us to be more vulnerable. It makes it very difficult for us to do that. But we know that we connect with people based on a variety of different things. Sometimes there's just a chemistry with somebody. How many of you have that friend that you can see them once every 10 years and you pick up right where you left off, and it's just amazing. It's like you were never ever apart. So sometimes you just have awesome chemistry with people. So that's one way that you connect. Another way that we connect with people is that we're forced. So we're forced to work with people. A lot of times we're lucky and we get along with our coworkers and we love being with them and we love the challenges that come with working together, but we're forced to be with them. Our children have a lot of connections that are forced on them through school and who they sit with and what group work they get put into. We connect through shared language. When you're in a group with people, we talked about laughter last week, right? When you're in a group with people and something happens that's funny and you also start laughing while they're laughing, don't you find yourself looking around and going, oh yeah, those are probably my people. How amazing is that, right? So you share a language, you share common interests. We also connect with people non-verbally, by the way that our eyes look, by the way that we hold ourselves, by the way that we make faces. I have a tendency to have my face show everything that I'm thinking, which sometimes is a positive, but most of the time it's a negative. So I can come across as not wanting to connect with you. And yet, I really do want to connect with you. I'm just observing and taking it all in until I decide whether I'm really ready to be vulnerable with you or not. And then finally, right, in this day and age, we've got social media and emails and text messages and phones and, shared watching where we can watch a movie together with somebody who's out of state. So those activities are very important to connection as well. But a lot of times, like we said, we avoid connection. And we avoid connection because we're scared. We're kind of like that antelope hanging out up here saying, you know what, I'm just going to let everybody know that I care about them, but I'm not really going to let you get to know me because I'm afraid. I'm afraid for you to get to know me. I'm afraid to be vulnerable. I'm afraid because I've experienced things in my past and I got hurt. And I'm just going to close myself off for a while and I think I'm doing fine. But I want to tell you guys that that's not being true to your authentic self. And I love this quote from Brene Brown. She says, authenticity is the daily practice of letting go of who we think we're supposed to be and embracing who we are. Choosing authenticity means cultivating the courage to be imperfect. And we avoid connection because we want people to believe that we have all of the answers and that there is nothing wrong in our lives. That is very, very difficult. It's very difficult to step into a place where you let people see the real you and get to know the real you. But if we're going to beat these blues, we've got to find at least one or two people who we're willing to engage with, who we're willing to walk into that space, who we are going to let love us no matter what. And the reason that we're going to do that is because connection is important. So this is a picture of my daughter and some friends. We had the ability, she was a pole vaulter, to make some really awesome connections with people who had a love as well for track and field. So think about who makes you smile. Think about who you're comfortable with. Think about how relationships make you happy. Now, some of you are saying, I'm an introvert and I don't need people. I refuel by being by myself. And that's probably true, and that's okay. But there are still few people inside of your circle who you trust to sit with you quietly while you refuel, who allow you to have that space so that when you're ready, you still know that they're there. We don't live well as isolated beings. You need a hug. And my introverted friends may be saying, oh, no, I don't. But let me tell you what, hugging releases oxytocin, dopamine, and it directly impacts your cortisol levels. So we're going to count right now because it is recommended that you get 8 10-second hugs a day for maintenance, 12 10-second hugs a day for growth. And right now, during this pandemic and the times of our phones being so prominent in our lives, where we don't always engage in conversation, but we do things so digitally, we are looking at studies that show upwards of 18 10-second hugs a day are needed for those chemicals to be released in our body. So I want you to do something right now. It's going to be very uncomfortable, and I get that, but I'm all about pushing people out of their zone. So I want you to go ahead and wrap your arms around you. And I'm just going to count silently for 10 seconds. I hope you feel a little more relaxed. I hope you feel that some of your levels of stress decreased. We know that oxytocin promotes feelings of contentment, reduces stress, and promotes bonding. Dopamine is our pleasure hormone. It's why people chase highs with substances, because the dopamine gets released and makes us feel better. And then cortisol that's released when we hug, that's our body's fight or flight hormone. It keeps inflammation down, it reduces our blood pressure, it controls our sleep cycle, and it boosts our energy. So for those of you who have little people in your house, I know that it's really hard because you feel like they're crawling in your skin all the time and you're like, no, I just need my body back. Enjoy it while you can. Those of us with teenagers, I'm like, please come hug your mama. I don't always get those hugs. Occasionally, I get them by cuddling and watching shows on TV, right? Head on my lap. Hey, rub my head. Sometimes I roll my eyes at that. Okay, a lot of times I roll my eyes at that. I'm like, you want me to do what? I don't want to rub your head again. But guess what? I should probably be enjoying that time because it's that touch that is happening. So this is just a funny picture of my colleagues and I at a conference where we just rented bikes for a day and went around to see what adventures we could have on. And of course, we got playing a little bit. I encourage you to find ways every day to live more, to love harder, to laugh till your belly hurts, and to play. It feels like right now with this virtual work, it's very difficult to move into that space of turning things off. But to beat those winter blues, it's really, really important that we find ways to do that. But why don't we? We don't because we're our own worst enemy. I shared a selfie of myself because I'm a terrible selfie taker. I'm so judgmental of myself. My hair doesn't look good. My nose is too big. This about my body. I'm too chatty. I'm an orange personality, so I'm all over the place all of the time. I don't think linearly. I can tell you everything that's wrong with me. I have a really hard time telling you things that are good about me. But Brene tells us that you are important. That you are imperfect. You are wired for struggle, but I'm worthy of love and belonging. I believe that Brene would also tell us that we were important. So maybe that was just my subconscious coming in. For those of you who needed to hear that, don't let that negative voice take over. I live with anxiety, and so I have to remind myself a lot that just because I think it doesn't make it true. So find somebody who will tell you something good about yourself. And then listen. Become a better listener. Try to stop listening for a response. And listen to show empathy. Listen to hear. Listen to engage. I have a tendency that if you talk to me while I'm doing something else, especially reading a book or anything, I'll listen with half an ear and not a whole in an ear. And then I'll say, what? What'd you say? What? Tell me more. Did you just say? Oh, I didn't hear that right at all. So I want to encourage you to find ways to become a better listener. And the way that you do that is to become mindful. So this picture is on another trip that we were lucky enough to have for our national association meeting. And we drove to Yellowstone, and bison just started crossing the road. So I had to be present in the moment, because guess what? I wasn't going anywhere. It didn't matter where I wanted to be or what I thought was more important. Old Faithful was just ahead of me, but Old Faithful was out of reach because the bison decided that they needed my attention. How many times do we listen when someone is trying to connect with us? And do we allow ourselves to be stopped by that bison and put everything else down and engage with them? To build connection and to beat those winter blues, we've got to be intentional and we've got to be present. So I encourage you to take the time to be present. Finally, let's learn for yourself what works for you. What works for me is not necessarily going to work for some of my good friends or for some of my coworkers. So what works for you in staying connected? Again, be intentional. When you think, hey, I should call my friend Sally, text your friend Sally or call your friend Sally. I have a to-do list for work. How many of you have a to-do list or a grocery list? How about we make a connection list and think about who you want to connect with and then do it? Don't wait on other people to call you. I have found that right now during this time that I just kind of sit and think, oh, maybe nobody wants to talk to me, so I don't reach out to them. When in reality, how amazing would it be if I was reaching out to people and they were reaching out to me and we had that symbiotic kind of relationship? So put priority on your connections. And then use what you've got. We have so many tools available. Snail mail, phone calls, text messaging, video chat. There's so many apps for this where it's free. Email, your social media apps. So Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Parler, or whatever other ones you like to use. Finding ways to have socially distanced gatherings. One of the best things that you can do, right? It may be a little cold, but build a bonfire, have everybody bring, a chair, come sit on a deck, right? I know it's cold, but go skiing, go sledding. What can you think of to do right now? And then finally, video-based activities. So whether it's Zoom or maybe you're a gamer, I know that has been a lifesaver for many of our young people and for our young adults, and probably some of you who are young at heart. So connect in any way that you can and in the ways that you're most comfortable. Remember, connection relies on you being authentic to you. And then finally, connection and being vulnerable means not being afraid to ask the hard questions. Asking somebody, how are you? And then answering, I'm good, is not entering into that place of true connection and true vulnerability. So if you notice that somebody seems not quite themselves and they're struggling with their ways to live, laugh, and play, ask them, how are you coping? Is something bothering you? There's lots of tough things going on right now. Is there anything I can do for you? How can I help you? Put yourself out there and give them space to engage back. And hopefully that will help with everything that you are going through. So one of the things that we want to encourage you to do is when you look for resources, search the internet by adding .gov.edu or .org to the end of your search. You can put site, S-I-T-E, before that. My resources are listed here. Some mindfulness resources and other things that are available. Don't forget, we have a wonderful employee assistance plan and lots of things to help you if you're feeling like you're struggling with connection or making true connections with other people. And then hopefully what you take away from today is that you are made for connection. You are important enough for that. Connection can make you healthier. Make yourself a to-do list so that you prioritize ways to overcome barriers. And then finally, be mindful about connecting and using the tools that you have. I appreciate your time. I know that was a lot of information in a short place, but do we have any questions? I really appreciate you all being here and the time that you've spent with me today.
Great. We do have a couple of questions here in our Q&A, so I'll go ahead and get started. If anyone has any additional questions, please feel free to throw them in the Q&A here, and we'll get them answered. The first is there work on the differences between hugging oneself and hugging others?
Actually, hugging oneself would fall probably, there is. Let me start by saying that there is research. And so I have a pile of things here that I can tell you about. So one of the things that we know is that hugging yourself can be a release. It's not vicarious touch, but you're remembering how it feels to connect with another person. It causes your brain to fire in a different way. When you're actually hugging another person, there are more neurons and things that are released because skin is a conducive way that we share empathy and that we release hormones. So when you're actually with another person, right, there are more places that you are being touched. So there, it is obviously better to hug another person, but when another person is not there, if you have an animal, if you have a teddy bear, if you have a pillow, right, give yourself the permission to let yourself go. We also know that there are studies done by seeing another person hug that can also release those same feelings because it triggers memories for you of another person. So I encourage you, if you want, you can send me an email. I can send you some of the research, but a lot of those resources are on the resource page.
Great. In trying to take an empathetic approach, there's often the fix versus listen approach of the interaction, which can often be a tough line to toe. Are there any ways to phrase statements or begin the conversation to match where the other person currently is emotionally?
Yeah, so one of the things that we would recommend is that we're more uncomfortable being silent than the person that is talking to us. So the number one thing is to say, thank you very much for sharing that with me. I'm processing what you have told me. I'm thinking about what you have said. I really want to jump into a place where I can help you. What do you think would be best for me to do, or how can I support you? Can I share resources with you? Can I stand beside you while you access those resources? Because it is really, really difficult when we know that we want to help somebody, right? And so we want to give choice always. So would you like to go for a walk today? Or would you like if I came over and sat with you while you do laundry? I will tell you that I am a chronic procrastinator. Working from home has probably been a good thing for me because I actually have engaged with housework a little bit more than normally do because I'm like, oh, I don't see the clutter. It's no big deal. But if I have a friend come over and talk to me while I clean my closet or I do my dishes or while I vacuum, they don't have to do any work at all. I do better with that. So when you think about being empathetic to somebody, it's about letting them know that you've entered into presence with them and that you are there and that you will do whatever you can to help support them in whatever choice they make. Again, as long as the choice that they make is not harmful to them or to somebody else. If you need more questions, whoever asked that question, please feel again to reach out. I would be happy to converse with you a little bit more about that.
Great, we'll keep going. Being relatively new to town, how do you make new connections with the social distancing mandates and being an introvert?
So I would say the best recommendation that I have, and that is a hard one for me because I am extroverted out of my mind. Like I am really extroverted, but I have a introverted husband and an introverted daughter and introverted, very, very good friends who are introverted. So one of the things that I would encourage you to do is to look wherever you're at, whatever zip code you're in, and think about a hobby that you have. So maybe you like to scrapbook, maybe you like to throw axes, maybe you like to hunt, maybe you like to shoot, maybe you like to go for walks. And then I would encourage you to join a virtual accountability group. I'm currently in a Facebook group that is helping me with monitoring my healthy eating. And the support that I am getting from that, not only am I meeting new people, but I'm getting amazing recipes and amazing support and kudos as I struggle and as I have challenges. So here's the hard part, right? It's sending that email and saying, I noticed that your group is available Are you open to new members? We've done a lot of virtual races this year. If you live in the Columbus area, there are tons of virtual races through some of the race shops. If you're a walker or jogger or runner, we do a lot of virtual fitness classes. We have a lot of great virtual fitness classes available through Ohio State. So I would just suggest putting yourself out on the line, kind of identifying what is a priority for you. What would you like to spend some of your downtime on? And then finding a group via Facebook or by the internet, grab your community paper and see what's available for you. Hopefully that helps a little bit. I know, listen, I'm giving you strength, right? Also grab an extroverted friend. Introverts, grab an extroverted friend who's not afraid to ask those questions and who's not afraid to be told no. Because I'll ask anybody anything. I can meet anybody anywhere. So it wouldn't bother me at all to help you find that resource. You put your extroverted friend on finding you something that you're interested in, you're going to get more information than you would ever want. And you're going to be like, stop, no more.
I know we're coming up here on 1
we're getting
o'clock.
Close.
We'll do a couple more. So next question says, great presentation. Coincidentally, our family is dealing with a COVID death this week, and trying to learn ways to connect has been very challenging. We've been using technology, FaceTime and Zoom, but do you have any other ideas about how to grieve together during this time?
First of all, I'm so sorry for your loss, and for anyone else who has experienced a death recently. It's never easy. So one of the things that I would suggest possibly is maybe starting an email chain with your family. You said you have Facebook, so maybe start a Facebook Messenger group, and then in that group, or even make a private Facebook page and kind of make it like a journal where you share pictures, where you share videos, where you share memories, where you share stories, where you talk and say, hey, today is not a good day, or today's a great day. I'm remembering grandma and all the funny things that she used to do. And allow yourself that ability to think differently. Maybe it's writing in a journal that you all share and swap later on. Maybe it's scrapbooking and then setting a date. We're going to scrapbook all of the memories that we have, or put them together, and then we're going to set a date in July when we can meet at the park to be outside. Give yourself a date, set a timeline for yourself so that you know that there's going to be a time for you to celebrate the life of your loved one together. I think right now the hardest part is that it's also unknown. But if you can look ahead just a few months, that might give you the opportunity to say, you know what, I know that right now we don't get the chance to be together, but we are going to do this, right? Again, it's that intentionality. The other thing is give yourself permission to just stop for a while. Just turn off your technology, turn off your computers for a while, and just with the family that you have near you, or the family that you're able to possibly bring into your bubble, that you're able to comfort one another in whatever way that looks like. My prayers go out to you. Again, if you would like some more resources, please let me know. I'm happy to help. I would also encourage you to reach out to our EAP with your family. Take advantage of those free sessions that we have available, and talk with somebody else who can also give you some more coping strategies just on grief in general, let alone grief on during COVID.
Jami, we've got 3 more questions in the box.
Okay.
If you're okay to stay on for a few more minutes.
Yep, sure
Okay.
can.
Someone asked if you could just reiterate the differences between empathy and sympathy.
Okay, I won't be able to use Brene's exact words, but empathy is essentially sitting with someone and being there to support them. Sympathy is when, like she said, you want a silver lining it. You want to let somebody know that you care, but you're not really invested. So an empathetic response is one where you also join in, where you walk in that dark place, where you walk in that joyful place, where you walk and celebrate or grieve with your loved one. Sympathy is, I'm very sorry about that, and I'm going to remind you of X, Y, and Z. So it can be a very fine line, and depending on your relationship with somebody, sympathy might be the appropriate response. It's not a bad thing. It's just that for deeper connection, we want to empathize and join in an empathetic way with others.
I'm muted. The next question is, how do you encourage a friend to listen, one that doesn't listen and constantly talks and you can't get a word in? Being an introvert, you are better at listening, but it gets exhausting.
Are we friends? Because honestly, introverted people, introverted friends, it's okay to say to your extroverted person, stop. Stop. You've already told me that 14 times. They don't really want to hear that they've already done that, but they know that they have. And so it's okay for you to figure out, and stop may be more direct than you want to be, but it's okay for you to set a boundary and say, I love listening to you, but right now I am really struggling with something. And I was really hoping that maybe we could just take a time out for a minute and maybe you could help me out a little bit with what I'm going through. I just really need someone to share a listening ear with me. Are you able to do that? If you're not, okay, I've got to go right now. I've got to hang up. So I know if you're, a lot of my friends who are introverted are also very empathetic and blue, and they want everybody to be happy. Blue is a real colors term. For those of you who don't know, and when I said that about being orange, that's also a real colors term. It's a personality temperament tool. And so one of the things that you want to think about is that boundaries are key for any connection and for any relationship. And so it is okay. And as somebody who is extremely extroverted, I appreciate when my friends are comfortable enough to say to me, enough already. I need you to focus on me. Put your stuff down and let's listen. So I really do encourage you to find words that are authentic to you. But could you please listen to me? I'm really struggling right now. It's probably a really good place to start.
And the last question is, how do you address someone who is being sympathetic? Is there a way to flip the script to help them realize that?
So again, that is probably very similar to the answer to the last question. It's finding words for that. The other thing that would be really helpful, probably if you are in a close enough relationship, or if the person likes to read, Brene Brown's books have wonderful, on her website, she has wonderful resources for book studies. The questions are already there. So engaging in group dialogues with individuals where there are more than 2 or 3 people, where you can have open, honest conversations about what is a sympathetic response, what's an empathetic response, when do you find yourself being sympathetic, when do you find yourself being empathetic, to help give that person some self-awareness could be really important. The other thing is, again, to think about if you're comfortable saying, I don't really need you to fix that for me right now. I appreciate that you want to help me, but that's not what I need right now. Right now, I just need you to sit with me while I process. Can we do that together? And hopefully that will help them. You can be very bold if you want and say, that didn't help me at all. But we know that I statements, right, work best when we're communicating with others. So I hear you saying right now that you think I need to do X, Y, and Z, but I feel like right now I would like to just do this. So I think that's what I'm going to do. Or I am struggling with the fact that you think I need to do things the way that you want me to do them. I'm not comfortable doing that. So, okay. And if we use the little antelope, right, in the story in Brene's video, if we think about how it kept coming back, well, so-and-so is an A student, or at least you have a marriage, right? And all of the things that she said, see if there are ways that you can think about, I know that I have positive things going in my life, but right now my concern and my heart and my worry are with Johnny, or are with the fact that I lost a baby, or with the fact that this happened. So thank you for that response. But right now, this is where I am. So figure out ways if you can. And I know it's hard. I've been practicing this for a long time and I'm still not good at it. Advocate for you. Advocate for what you know is good for you and for what works for you. And hopefully they will start to realize that this is who you're going to be and what you're going to do. I will say, though, that when you start to do that and you start to change your behavior a little bit, individuals will start to back away because you won't be acting in a way that they're used to. And so when you think about that, you have to know that some seasons may cause some friendships and things to end, and that's okay. There's a cycle for everything. Some of our relationships last a really long time, and some of them don't because our boundaries change and what we need change. So in that connection, right, we also have that cycle of knowing that that's not a healthy relationship for me anymore, and it's time for me to move on. Hopefully, those responses helped you all. I appreciate you all sticking on a little bit longer. If you need anything, my email is dellifield.2, DELLIF like frog, IELD like dog, .2 at osu.edu.
Great. That wraps up this series. We really thank everyone for joining, and thanks to Jami for a great presentation and some great tips and resources for us. Like I said, you should be getting your survey and post-evaluation survey and knowledge check here in the next couple of minutes. Be on the lookout for part 4 coming in the spring. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.